Now, this is from the book, The Essence of the Bhagavad Gita. And the reading goes as this. The chapter title is The Scripture Begins. The Bhagavad Gita begins with Dhritarashtra, the blind king, Duryodhana's father, wanting to know how the battle has been faring at Kurukshetra. Dhritarashtra is, as we know, blind. His blindness represents that aspect of mind which can perceive reality only through the senses. The war of Kurukshetra is not fought literally on an earthly battlefield, but takes place within every individual. Dhritarashtra consults Sanjaya, who represents introspection. Introspection alone can tell the blind mind which side is winning. Sanjay has the spiritual power to see things at a distance. Thus, through him, Dhritarashtra, who naturally wants to know what is happening on the battlefield, even while it happens, poses his question. He does so, however, in a most interesting manner. He doesn't ask, as one would expect him to do, which side is winning. Rather, what he asks is, which side has won? Past tense. Paramhansa Yogananda pointed out that this question, asking for introspection on something already past, gives a clear hint that the entire Bhagavad Gita is focused on the field of consciousness, not of martial battle. On an earthly battlefield, it is natural to ask, which side is winning? One expects immediate news as to which way the tide of battle is flowing, which ranks are standing firm, which are yielding to aggressive pressure, and which are making inroads into the enemy ranks in a psychological battle. On the other hand, it is only after the struggle, that the question arises, which side was victorious? So this is the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, friends. And the shloka, which is in Sanskrit, is Dharmakshetre, Kurukshetre, Samveta Yuyutsavaha, Mamkaha Pandvascher, Kim Kurvat Sanjaya. Kim Kurvat Sanjaya. What did they, Sanjay? Past tense. Now, Dhritarashtra, the blind sense mind, as reading, he wants Sanjay to tell him the outcome of the battle. And he's saying that when my offsprings and the sons of Pandu had gathered together eager for battle, what did they? What was the outcome? In this epic Mahabharata, Sanjay is blessed, friends, by Ved Vyas to have the divine sight, to have this impartial introspection, which is the intuitive power. Impartial introspection. That is what Sanjay in the Mahabharata presents. For all aspiring devotees, for all of us friends, Sanjay symbolizes our self-analysis, self-reflection, self-study. And as you know, Patanjali in the Eightfold Path of Yoga, the Ashtanga Yoga, has given self-study as one of the niyamas. It is the fourth niyama that we must practice, self-analysis, to review ourselves. And Sanjay literally means completely victorious, as he's one who has conquered himself. He's in tune with the divine consciousness, and he's able to tell exactly what has happened. And it is also, friends, the ability to put yourself aside and observe oneself. Basically, introspection helps us to judge our own selves accurately because we put our egos aside and we are looking within us, exploring our inner self as to where do I stand. Introspection is that power of impartial intuition that watches our thoughts. Watching our thoughts. How many times we do this, friends? Consciously watching our thoughts and analyzing what we are thinking. And this power not only reasons, it feels. Because when you're able to watch your thoughts, you're able to feel, friends. And this is a very important component, of introspection. When you're able to feel how you acted, what were your feelings when, there was some incident in your life? How were you feeling? And this is without any biased emotion. Emotions are not there. But your mind is clear and calm. Now, the inner consciousness, as we know, is the battlefield for all of us. Of course, the timeless message of Bhagavad Gita is basically to just remind us that it is not the battle of Kurukshetra that we are looking at here, but we are looking at our inner consciousness as to what are our thoughts, what are our emotions, how are we acting. And this is a message of Gita, which is a battle. Of course, in a battle, there are two opposing forces, the forces of good and the forces of evil. As we know, the Pandus and the Kurus. In the battle which is taking place in our inner consciousness, the battle is between our good thoughts and bad thoughts. The battle is between our discriminative intelligence and the blind sense mind. These are the opposing forces. The battle is between light and darkness. Darkness represents ignorance. When we don't know, we do things just out of ignorance. That is darkness. That represents the Kurus. All are within us. Because the Kurukshetra is the inner consciousness, all within us, friends. So when we begin to explore it, we realize that there are two opposing forces. Now, Sanjay, in verse 74, this is chapter 18. This is towards the end, friends. Why I want to talk about this is because he's seeing the whole, the dialogue which is happening between Lord Krishna and Arjuna. And at the end, towards the end, Sanjay says, I am thrilled to have been awakened from my stupor of delusion and to have felt the truth in this sacred dialogue. He felt that secret truth in the sacred dialogue which takes place between Lord Krishna and his disciple Arjuna. And this is what Sanjay has said towards the end of the Bhagavad Gita, that I'm thrilled. Paramhansa Yogananda has said that when we deeply meditate, now this is a very important point, friends, and this is something we can experiment with. Because as a scientist, I feel that we need to experiment, all these teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda and see how do they work for us, for me. He says that in deep meditation, after a deep meditation, when we're sitting in silence, that is in the end, if we take our time for impartial introspection, reviewing ourselves, self-analysis, self-study, what happens is there is an outcome, and that is intuitive awareness. Our awareness, higher awareness. Intuition is the soul's perception of the divine. Our souls will know what the divine will is. Isn't that wonderful? So that happens when we combine deep meditation with introspection, impartial introspection. And we look at ourselves, our actions, our feelings, our thoughts. And this will help us in developing our intuitive abilities. And, living by our intuition is far more interesting and profitable, I would say, because this way, our behaviors, our attitudes, all of these change, and we know how to act in a given situation. Anger is an issue that we all face, friends, in small, situations of life when we see that the other person is not behaving well. He may not be really behaving well. Maybe rude with us, maybe, saying many unpleasant things. But if we retort in the same coin, if we behave just like that person, then what will happen? The whole argument will continue endlessly. Relationships are spoiled. Now, as Yogananda has said, that it is in the interiorized state of our minds that the soul begins to talk to God. Wow. Because we are in that divine consciousness. We are in the domain of the divine. We know his will. We know the answers to our questions, to our problems, to our tests and challenges. We get answers from him. And when a devotee deeply meditates and makes this devotion offering, Attikutastha, this is the point between the eyebrows. We are giving everything, because everything is his. It is all divine play, a cosmic play, as we know. So when we are offering everything, it's an act of self-offering. Then at the Kutasana, what is happening is our intuition is gradually increasing. We are becoming more and more in tune with God consciousness. Now, just let's have a look at the battle which is taking place within us. Just let's have a look at it a little more deeply. The battle for a meditating devotee. We are all meditators. I'm sure that all of us here are meditating, at least doing Hangsa here. And, when we sit for meditation, there is a battle. As I said in the beginning, that in our inner consciousness, there are two opposing forces. One force, which is the good force of course, is when we are attempting, we are just making a self-effort to bring our outflowing energy in and up the spine. This is what we are trying to do, and bring it all the way up to the spine, at the point between the eyebrows, which is the seat of divine awakening, right? So this is the force that represents the Pandavas, right? But there is a downward pulling force for every meditating devotee. And that is our mind going through the senses out into the world. And this is very difficult to control, of course. And there are so many material pulls, temptations in the forms of desires, a million attachments, and our mind is not stable. That is the force, the downward pulling force, friends, which we have to fight. This is the battle for a meditating devotee. So after a deep meditation, it is important to introspect. It is important to introspect. How did I meditate? What did they? Let us ask the same question which Dhritarashtra asked Sanjay. What did they? Now here, they means the upward flowing energy through our self-effort. And remember, for our self-effort, what we have to do is perform the guru-given meditation technique correctly. And the second thing which will help the energy rise is our love, our devotion for God and gurus. The energy will rise. But what will happen if we do not practice in this manner? The temptations, the material pulls of this world will bring the energy down. So at the time of introspection, at the end of meditation, we must ask, how did we meditate? Did we practice our meditation devotion with love for the Guru? Did we practice it correctly? What did they? Ask yourself. This is a question. And also we have to ask that, did our energy go into the outward world? Was I thinking about maybe the report I was writing? and I have to complete and submit? Was I thinking of, what is happening, in my kitchen, or what is happening with my family and all of that? Therefore, we have to ask this question. This is introspection. What did they? Did my energy rise up? Was I practicing the techniques correctly? Was I practicing my techniques with love and devotion for God and goodness? Or was my energy being pulled down? What did they? Did my energy fall down the spine? And it was into the multifarious things of this material world. What did they? That is introspection. Sanjay is within us. Impartial introspection, friends, is a very beautiful power. We have that power. We have to only exercise that power and see the beauty of how it works so magically. Because when it happens, what we realize is that in many situations of our life where we have not been able to succeed, maybe in, bringing some of our relationships to a more pleasant form, or anything that we are probably facing in our lives, we realize through inspection, where am I going wrong? What do I need to do to make my relationship good? What do I need to do? What should have been my attitude? And then, of course, we have to change ourselves. But here also, I'd like to touch upon how to develop intuition. Of course, the first point I've already elaborated, which is practicing introspection after meditation. It is for all the meditators, of course. And if you're not doing this, practice it consciously after meditation, deliberately, friends, consciously, deliberately. Just few minutes maybe to start with, and slowly you can increase your time, because that will help to develop intuition. Because now I'm talking about how to develop intuition. This is the first thing, practicing impartial introspection. And what about people who are not meditating? There are many people, our family members. Of course, there are many people in our families who are not meditating. They're not on, the Kriya path like us. They're not meditating. What we can ask them is, friends, is a very simple thing. This is also introspection, which is at the time when you're going to bed at night, just few minutes, introspect. How did my day go? Close your eyes. Just ask your family members who are not meditating. Just before going to bed, they can close their eyes and think as to, what happened in the day. Just take a quick review, a flashback, quick flashback. What happened in my day today? How did I act? Why did this person behave with me? Was it my fault? All of that, we have to see that what happened. You have to look at that. And only when you know, when you realize, when you are aware of what happened, you can make any corrective measure. Not before that. If you don't even realize, if you're not even aware of why, things are happening like this, or what is my fault, where did I err, you will not make any correction, isn't it? So that is very important, developing intuition, introspection. The second is transcending, friends, our emotional feelings. How many times in the day we feel that emotional upheaval in us? We have to realize that, these are just certain steps which I'll talk about, that if there is an emotional upheaval, we are facing a lot of emotional feeling anytime in the day. How to transcend this? First thing is to calm the heart. The first and foremost thing is, friends, to calm the heart. A heart which is agitated will not be able to introspect. Intuition cannot develop. It is a hindrance. It is a big obstacle if your heart is not calm. Therefore, first step is calm the heart and see what has happened. The second thing is, do not retaliate impulsively. Do not retaliate, because that, as I said before, will lead to arguments, heated arguments. And the third is, of course, feeling of, you project a feeling of benevolence. compassion for that person, for that situation. I know it is very difficult. It's not easy, in that heat of the moment. How can you first calm your heart? How can you then not retaliate? And on top of all that, how can you project the feeling of compassion? Very difficult. But this is where our self-effort lies. In Kriya, on the Kriya path, we always say, make the self-effort. This is an important self-effort, friends, that will help to develop our intuitive power, the Sanjay in us. And when we are able to project a feeling of benevolence and compassion on that person or the situation, love will transmute all negativity completely. So this was the second. And the third, of course, is be an ego detective. To be an ego detective, friends, we have to catch ourselves, by the neck, I will say, and stop ourselves when we are having these three thoughts. First is, this is who I am. Self-definitions. When we are having these, this is who I am, It's an ego which is playing a big part here. Solution is, have your spiritual definitions instead. The second is, when the thought comes, I am the doer. I did this. Oh, wow. I did this. I'm the doer. The moment the thought comes, replace the thought with, God is the doer. God is the doer. The power of God is flowing through me. And I will reason, I will act, but guide thou my will, reason, and activity to the right course in everything I do. And finally, also, there's another point I wanted to mention, which is the thought which comes is, all this is mine. It belongs to me. The material possessions, all are mine. Then we have to replace this thought, friends, that Divine Mother, it is all thine. And I have got it from you on loan. And this is to live a life of complete non-attachment, basically. Therefore, friends, in the end, I would say it is all a journey to change ourselves. It is all a journey where we need to mend our attitudes, our behaviors, and live a life which conforms to spiritual living. Thank you.
So friends, we're going to do some visualization on the topic of introspection. Swami Kriyananji said that the most important moment of life is about when we are about to leave our bodies. And he said, there's a flash of the whole life that comes in front of us. It is in a matter of few seconds, we review the whole life as an introspection. That moment of introspection brings awareness in our mind. How well have we lived our lives? What we could have done better? Yogananji said, why should we wait for the last moment of our life, or to say it more bluntly, when it is the time of death, that we review our lives? He said, certain practices will help us not only to prepare for that final exam, but also to meet our daily responsibilities more effectively. What can be called as life's intermediary exam. So we're going to try it out today and test and see and review our lives and see how we have lived our lives so far. And this can be done sometimes on our own also. Yogananji says the thought and the flashes of actions that are uppermost in the mind at the time of our leaving the body or any time that we review will determine what our future will be like. Future lives or future times will be like. Future, the balanced life. If our thoughts take us upwards, sideways, or downward. If the thoughts, the time that we are reviewing, take us upward, then we are going to experience in the rest of the life, whenever we review, a greater spiritual freedom. If our thoughts take us sideways towards further involvement in desires and worldly attachments, we are going to be more living that kind of life. Our thoughts are taking us downwards towards greater darkness, confusion, ignorance. That is the kind of life we are going to live. And whenever we review, we can review this life sometimes in the night before going to bed. Bhagavad Gita says, if our last thought is of God, it is to Him we will go. If that thought is of family, relatives, it is to them we will go. If the last lingering thought in the mind is of regret for mistakes we have made in this life, our direction will be downward towards a lessened ability to pass the true tests in future. And finally, if the thought is of attraction to those mistakes or downward motions will be the further and further more rapid. He strongly recommends that let us not feel guilty of the mistakes that we have made, because this is where we are putting energy, and it is where there we will be more drawn to. There was a story of a saint when he was, or of a person who had a grocery shop. And he was told that if at the end of the life you have thoughts of the God, then you will go to God. He had 11 children. He named them all after the names of the gods: Ram, Sita, Lakshman, Shiv, Parvati, Ganesh, Saraswati, all the names were there. So he thought, when I'm leaving the body, I'm going to call my children, and that is how I will go to God. So when his time came to leave the body, all children, 11 children were there, and he was calling them one by one, and all children were there present at his service. He was pleased to see them. But then suddenly he said, all of you are here. Who's taking care of the grocery shop? So finally, in the introspection, he actually went to the place where he was more attached to. I have also thought about it myself many times, that okay, it's nice if last minute I'm thinking of my guru, then it is to guru that I will go to. But our inner course, our inner heart, our inner habits and desires and likes and dislikes finally take us to the point where we have spent most of our lives. No magic can be run at that point. This is how God has made this world. So Yogananda goes on to say, money, savings, accounts, home, cherished passions, family members, both near and distant, the fame, the reputation for which you have worked hard, pleasures and delights of the senses, attachment to people, things, moments you have enjoyed, all this will be swept away in a moment as though they had never existed. They had never been with us. And we are gone into another life. Everything. How many millions of times of our lives we have done this? So, he strongly says that these kind of practices or introspection will help us not only to prepare for that final exam, but also to meet your present day responsibilities more effectively. And what again, I repeat, the word he uses is life's intermediary exam. Attitude of non-attachment, of attitude of all the time seeking material success, all these things are gone in a flash. So now, Swami Kiranji has given some tips. How can we prepare? How can we live our lives more effectively? He says, before you go to sleep, check your feelings in your heart. Check out attachments, new desires, anything that you acquired that day. Mentally build a bonfire, cast it into that. Watch with the attitude of smile of relief. I attracted this, I have given it back. I found something more interesting, which is so, sounds so trivial, he said, to practice. Swami Kiranji has said, even when you are taking a bath and you're applying some soap or some liquid to cleanse yourself, he say, this arm, this body, this face is not going to be mine forever. Someday it will be ashes. This is not what I am. I am a spirit, I am soul. We have attachments to the things. He says, everything you may think as your own is your own only on a loan. 70 years, 80 years, 100 years on loan. It belonged to somebody else. It is going to belong to somebody else in future. He also says of practicing saying grace before the meals. Offer your food up to God in the sense sharing it with Him. Say a grace. Say it mentally if the people around you may not be very supportive of it. He also shares a story which is very interesting about the point of guilt, because many students come to me that this thing went wrong and I'm not able to get it out of my system. He says that there was a person who had visions, and in the visions were of the astral world. He would see many people, and then when he focused more, he found those are human bodies of the women. And on more focus, he found there were figures of the nuns. And they didn't look very happy in the astral world. They seemed to be in some lower quarters of the astral world. When more study was done that what were those pictures were about, it came to be realized that, let me just give you the right wordings here. The person who was getting those visions, he realized that it was the visions of some Catholic nuns, and it was specifically a woman she saw unknown to her who actually had lived on the earth and had gone to the hell. And she had gone to the hell because it was said she had continuous feelings of guilt. She was serving the divine Jesus Christ all her life. She was praying. She was living that life, but she held huge feelings of guilt. And those feelings of guilt were because she was told that she had been disobedient to a monastic superior. Just because she was told that she has been disobedient to a monastic superior, she held it so close to her heart, and she felt so guilty about being disobedient that this thought occupied all her brain, all her heart. She just kept telling herself, oh, I've been disobedient. And what happened? When she left her body, she went to the astral world where the people of disobedience lived. So, friends, the point here I'm making is we all are human. We make mistakes. Don't kill yourself in shame or in guilt. Yogananji has emphasized two very important feelings. One is feeling of guilt, and the other is feeling of fear. What we fear, we attract. So now I want to take you through a guided visualization. So I want you to now light up, all of you, bring your candles, and so that push back and set your screen in a way that you have the flame, we can see the flame. And I want you to focus on that flame, sit straight with your back straight, spine straight, feel the flow of the energy and focusing on the flame. Lives review. If anyone can play soft music, you're allowed to, but I'm not going to wait for it. You can just bring in that only instrumental, very soft. Keeping the gaze at the spiritual eye and your thought process and the warmth and the purity of the fire in front of you. Go over your life up to the present moment. Concentrate on the happy times rather than on the sad. Since positive expectations will be more likely to attract to you a happy state from now onwards or post your final exam. Still, do not avoid reflecting on the mistakes you may have made. Try instead to view those mistakes positively, bearing in mind that we learn from our mistakes and we don't try not to repeat them. Feelings of guilt will hinder you from making further progress. Feeling of guilt will act as affirmations of failure. Cast aside guilt. Therefore, from your heart, you might even say to God frankly, "It is you who set up this shadow show for me. It isn't entirely my fault that, through inexperience, I didn't know where the mistakes were made." Confession and final absolution may be a good thing if they leave a feeling of truly being released with those sins. Do not allow those mistakes, those sins to linger in your heart or in your mind. Whatever their magnitude be, cast them away now. Remove them from your heart. Remove them from your thoughts. You are a pure soul made in the image of God. It's good to make confession to God and ask Him directly for His forgiveness. No repetitive discussion of the mistakes or of the guilt help us to grow in life. Cast away. Cast away all your mistakes. Say to God simply, take me as I am. Divine Mother, I know now that I want you alone. I made mistakes in delusion. I promise I'm going to be better and better. The soul is a part of God. No part of God can be destroyed. We are immortal in His image. Of course, God forgives you. Your need is only to forgive yourself. Take this moment. Bring your focus to the spiritual eye once again. Whatever mistakes that linger with you, in the image, in the presence of the divine, forgive yourself. Go over your past mistakes, then mentally offer them up to God. Don't view them as sins, for they were committed in ignorance of the true state of things. God alone dreamt your existence. He infused into you from the beginning the delusion of ego identity. View whatever mistakes you have committed as having been made by Him through your own dream existence. Here is one way to do it. Think of everything that seems to you attractive. Anything that seems to you attractive. Next, withdraw your energy from that attraction and concentrate inwardly on the superior appeal of your soul bliss. Bliss is the higher, the true alternative to every outward attraction. In soul bliss, yes, even the anticipation of it, notice how sensory attractions by compassion simply disappear. Focus, concentrate at the spiritual eye with the fire divine in front of you. You tell yourself, feel the warmth of the fire. If you remember having hurt ever anybody, or perhaps having acted unjustly towards him, mentally send him blessings. Send him blessings. Visualize him or her floating in the ocean of God's bliss. The hurt, the pain is dissolved, is all God's bliss everywhere. If ever you have desecrated your own higher self-image, face that memory frankly, but calmly and dispassionately. Don't seek justification for your mistakes, and don't beat yourself mentally and emotionally for having done wrong. Say to God, "It was you, Lord, acting through my ignorance." Come fully now into that experience. I want to share it with you that I may understand fully that it was really you, your energy which I directed wrongly by my folly. I won't cling to that folly any longer. I release it. I release it. I watch it evaporating in skies of infinite bliss. Help me to see the truth. Compared to your light, my folly has been empty darkness, forever foreign to my true self. If ever you have spoken or acted inconsiderately towards another human being, even perhaps in haste, recreate that scene in your mind now. And then ask God to bless everyone whom you may have hurt ever. Project rays of love and bliss outward from your heart to all who have ever had to bear the brunt of your anger, impatience, unkindness, or cruelty. Cast away. If ever you have held a negative thought towards anyone, send him blessings to replace those disturbing vibrations. Raise your feelings to a level where you find yourself thinking of that person with kindness. Don't imagine it is sufficient merely to forgive him. With the lingering thought that he needs forgiveness, send him supportive thoughts. Tell him mentally now, it is your job, not mine, to work out whatever problems you may have. For my part, I wish you strength, happiness, and wisdom, for we are fellow pilgrims on the long journey to eternal bliss of God. If in any way you have ever cheated anyone or deprived him of his just dues, ask God to bless that person. Send him also your own blessings. It might even help both of you to pray that he be reimbursed out of your own store of good karma that you have accumulated for yourself. Reimburse it. You took his share, give it back. If you have ever spoken critically of or mocked anyone, even mentally, offer him now your heartfelt kindness and good wishes for his eventual wisdom and inner freedom. If you've ever acted in such a way to cause you embarrassment, laugh with God. Pray to him, I have learned something from this experience. Don't let me make such a fool of myself again. Remember this, every desire must be fulfilled, even a desire for an ice cream. Pray to God, I am yours, Lord. I want only thee now, nothing but thee. Go mentally over every desire in your heart and offer it to God. Think of the higher, spiritual counterpart of the fulfillment of the promised desire. Tell God, even if you had a desire for a car, I won't be needing a car anymore where I am going or in my life ahead. Your love, your bliss, your grace, I am filled with gratitude. If you feel any attachments, visualize a cord leading out to that from your heart. With a sharp knife, mentally sever that cord. If it seems thick, hack it with an axe. But to remove it, let it go. Feel every attachment being cut off, leaving you with the blessing of inner freedom. Dwell on the thought of that freedom, freedom from all delusion, all desires, all attachments, and at last from every self-definition. Listen when you can to spiritual recordings of music, of lofty music of the divine, affirming God mantras. Listen to the sound of Om. Dwell on thoughts of eternal love for yourself, for all creatures. Dwell more on His forgiveness, on His utter acceptance of you through all eternity. We are His own. Pray for all beings. Bless them in God's light. In all planets, pray for them. Bless them. Surround them in God's light. Send to all the beings of all the planets His love. Reflect that everyone on earth, no matter how deeply deluded he may be, is in his own way seeking eternal bliss. Reflect also that it is everyone's destiny to find that bliss. No matter how long a journey it is, all beings equally are children of the same one light, one love, one bliss that Krishna, Buddha, Paramhansa Yogananda, Babaji, all saints and masters knew. It is the underlying nature of your own eternal self. Om. Let us all chant Om 3 times. Om. Om. Om.